All right. Welcome, everybody. Oh, is my mic working? Okay, perfect. Welcome to Emerging Leaders, Crafting a Career in CPG. My name is Zoe. I am one of Burgess Institute's Marketing and Communications interns, and I'm here with Bree. Bree, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Brianna Makaric. I am excited to be back on campus. I graduated a couple years ago and excited to hopefully talk all things CPG today, inspire anyone who has a business, who hasn't started a business, or is just looking to have a good job when they graduate. So really excited to be here, and I've been in your shoes before, so looking forward to getting to know you all.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your time as an MSU student?
Yeah, so I actually started a company at Michigan State during my sophomore year. So my freshman year was a very normal freshman year, tailgate season, all the fun things that you guys are going through in the fall. In my sophomore year, I started a business that happened through Startup Weekend, which is now called 2-Day Venture. So if you're familiar with that and heard of that, that's where I started my business. And it was a probiotic snack bite business that I had started. I really wanted to find a way for just anyone to get their daily dose of probiotics in food form rather than taking a pill, so that they could actually feel good. And it was all about healthy living and a good balance and lifestyle. So started that and ran that for 3.5 years and a year post-school. So my junior and senior year looked very different as I was running the business, and we started to scale up that operation as well. So graduation was very different. While I was like, oh, I'm not going to go and get a job like a lot of my friends, I'm going to continue to pursue my startup.
Could you share a little bit more about where you are now and a little bit more about yourself as well?
Yeah, so I started the business, and kind of the rest of the complete, I actually worked on the business, like I said, for about a year post-graduation, and during that time, it was the pandemic, as you guys, remember, and I was really looking to push the business even further and stop being in the business and work on the business. So I was still the one shipping out orders, very close to the product, checking in at retail stores where we were merchandised in Michigan. I wanted to think bigger, to think more strategically. Yes, 6 months down the road, but also, 12 months, 2 years, what's the plan for Bright Bites? How do we grow? So I decided to move to Arizona, very different. I was living in Michigan at the time, to really start to think about the business in a larger, bigger picture. And during that time, I continued to pursue the business for months after, and decided to make a career pivot. I then ended up in medical sales, which was like a complete 180 from what I was doing in a consumer packaged goods industry. I was working in med sales for a company called Stryker, which is based in Michigan. And I learned very quickly what I didn't want to do. And when we were talking about this, I was like, I think a huge lesson and kind of theme is like, learn what you don't want to do. That's okay if you had an internship and you hated it. It was terrible. At least nope, not for me, don't want to do it, and understand why. Of course, you're going to find the things that you're passionate about, and it's great when you can merge kind of your passions with work, because it makes it more enjoyable, but also find out the things that you just aren't as inspiring. What makes you excited? So when I was at Stryker, I just didn't have that same I was shut down my startup. I didn't have that same passion. I was not knowing everything that was going on inside the business, and it was a large company, so I wasn't going to, but I was looking for a career pivot, and I found the company that I'm at currently in Chicago. So I moved to Chicago. I found the company called Ritual Zero Proof. We are the #1 non-alcoholic spirits brand in the country. So we have non-alcoholic spirits that are tequila, gin, whiskey, rum. So you can't get drunk off them. They don't have any alcohol in them, but we know that Gen Z is drinking less. People are looking for a way to have a mocktail or cheers with your friends and still get up and have a nice, productive day the next day. Or, people on medication that can't drink, or they have a marathon the next day. They still want to go and have a normal night and dinner with a drink. So that is where I work now in Chicago. And I lead all of our national account sales, so calling on Walmart, Kroger, Meijer, Total Wine, and all the strategy that goes into our national retail programs.
Thank you for sharing that. I can it's nice to see somebody that's kind of dipped their toe into a couple of different areas that are completely different from each other. So it's kind of comforting to see that, knowing that I'm graduating soon. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that as well. Could you tell us a little bit about your time at Burgess?
Yeah, I got linked to Burgess really early on through 2-Day Venture, and Paul, as some of you guys might know, he was the first person I met with here, and I don't remember the exact years at what stages was going on, but they had a lot of the same framework that's in place today, but a lot has changed and evolved to really great programming, but they really linked me up and gave me resources, funding. Hey, we know this person, you can talk to this alumni, here's 5 other CPG alums that you can chat with, and that was really helpful. I participated in a lot of the pitch competitions, so we were talking with before this, they had the Women in Entrepreneurship pitch competition, so really there were so many incredible opportunities to get funding to help propel the business forward, and then connections to alumni, to packaging, food scientists. That was a huge portion. There's so many different aspects, and the Burgess was really incremental into letting me explore all those opportunities. I was able to use interns throughout the School of Business. We had, I think it was my senior year, there was like advertising. If you guys are advertising majors, there was a capstone where they actually, Bright Bites was the client. And so I had 10 students doing work for me, and then I was their client, and they came up with a marketing campaign and everything. So there were so many new opportunities that I was able to get linked up to that, one, were very low cost or very affordable, or I was given funding to pursue those opportunities even further. So it's a great area and way to start a business. You have a lot of foundational support here, and I know that keep building it and keep expanding it every single year. So take advantage of it while you can, because when you go out into the real world after MSU, there's no startup mentors or guides looking to help you, kind of assist you along every way. There's people out there, but it's definitely harder to gain those resources, and just take advantage of everything they have to offer. There's so many amazing programs, whether it's Innovate States, getting connected with the old alumni, leaderships, joining groups. I was telling Lee before this, one of my favorite trips was we went to Seattle and got to talk to tons of different companies and meet with them, and then you also leave with a ton of new friends, which is great.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like Burgess is such a great resource for a lot of people who are looking to start a business. Could you talk about your venture, Bright Bites, and how that came to be?
What else did I miss from it? Yeah, so I was a probiotic snack bite company. I started actually manufacturing. It was a full circle moment today. I manufactured in what they used to call this food trailer out on the student organic farm back, I don't exactly know where it is anymore. I don't think it's a thing, but it was a trailer that was a commercial kitchen, very creepy, very dark, and you drive out there. So that's where I first started manufacturing. There was no venture kitchen, for those of you who know what that is now. That was like a dream. Chris showed it to me today, and I think my jaw dropped. Having a space to manufacture product was amazing. I went to a manufacturer in Lansing and had to hand roll all the product myself with the support of my family, my friends, and I paid hourly for this kitchen. He was like, yeah, this is free for students, and it's like a space like this and has all the licensing. And I was like, wait, where was this 6 years ago? I could have saved so much time and money. And then eventually went to full-scale manufacturing. But it wasn't easy or glamorous at all during the time. It's fun to reflect and look back on, yeah, I had this business and we had successes, but there was also a ton of failures. One that I was reflecting on recently was we had transitioned from our manufacturer, so I was making everything at this incubator kitchen. We were rolling all of these bites, bars, everything. We then went to this full-scale manufacturer, and we started to do things like 10 to 15 times in the size load of what was coming out. So our product is going through this machine, and it comes out in these sheets, and then it was cut. I'm looking at it. My dad, who's here, was also there with me at this manufacturing plant, and I walk in, and I'm like, they're like, okay, do you have this and this? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. Here's my paper recipes that I just scaled up in Excel a little bit. They should work. Didn't work at all. These bars are seeping oil. Like, if you poured oil over your table and it just seeped oil, peanut butter, everything was just, and they were like, is this supposed to how it looks and tastes? And I was like, no, not at all. Okay, cool. Well, we just spent 4 hours doing this, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. And so that was like the first manufacturing run, and I was like, oh no, this is not good. Like, we don't have much time left, and you don't have, when you're just starting out at a manufacturer, you have one day. You don't have, it's not continuous 24/7 because you don't have that much volume. And so they gave you 8 hours. If your product failed during those 8 hours, cool, schedule another day, spend your thousands and thousands of dollars. So throughout all the journeys and trials and errors, there was also a ton of like exciting moments and fun things when we got to see the product in retail stores or selling on our own website, Amazon, getting press, those type of opportunities as well. But there's also a lot of those moments that are challenging, and you have to really push through, persevere. It's a grind no matter what. If you're working on a business now or you start something in the future, even in a career, it's a grind. There's some seasons of life that are just going to be more of a grind to work through, and it's about really pushing through those moments, but also like reflecting. So in those like super challenging times, like, okay, what was the good thing that came out of this? What is the one positive that I can look at? Well, we're here, we're at this manufacturer. Here's what could have been different. Here's what could have been better.
Thank you for sharing that. Kind of on top of what you just talked about, how did your experience with Bright Bites contribute to your growth and success now in your current role?
I wouldn't be here without starting a business. I wouldn't have been at the company I'm at. They wouldn't have hired me. They wouldn't have interviewed me without having that entrepreneurial background and that mindset. It's truly the reason that I've been able to accomplish everything and, be where I am. The versatility in skills that I've had to learn is huge to any employer, whether it's, you're working on something now and then you don't do the business and you go towards anything, but I had to do everything. I did start the business with a friend that ended up being a business divorce and started doing it myself, and that was a huge pivot. I had to learn how to handle everything myself. There was nobody, and she was the business major at the time. I was kinesiology, I think. I had a few different majors throughout school, so if you're going through that right now. And so I really had to sit there and say, like, I have to make every decision, whether it's packaging, operations, sales, design, branding, what does this brand mean? And there was no one that was going to make the decision for me. Yes, people will give you advice. Everyone will give you advice. You don't always want it, so be very careful. I think Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, didn't tell anyone about her idea for a very long time until she had it, because she was like, hey, there's 3 people that need to know about this, and I'm going to pursue it. Whether that's right or wrong, you have to kind of keep your head down and push through, because people are going to doubt you. They're going to say, that's hard, that's a crowded space, I heard it a lot. Snacks, CPG, very competitive, very expensive, nah. But if you can deliver a strong message and a strong product, you can go further with it. So where it got me today in my career, though, is I now can walk in, and I was able to land a job at Ritual as employee number 15. So they were a startup when I joined, and they still are. That's very small. I think our first office was maybe the size of the Entrepreneurship Lab, like maybe even smaller than that, and they took a huge risk. I mean, I didn't have the experience that everyone else did in terms of years, so a lot of times people are like, oh, I had 10 years in this industry or 25 years in this industry, but what you can really, and I focused on, was the versatility in my skills. I have a strong background in sales, in operations, in packaging, and an eye for all those things, and that was a huge strength of mine. I came to Ritual and was able to, immediately I was on the sales and marketing side, but I was in new product development meetings, and I have stayed in our new product development meetings and actually led new initiatives in the company for changing our packaging because of my experience. But that doesn't necessarily live in my job title, and it wasn't, hey, you signed up and you need to achieve this. It was something that, through my entrepreneurship background, that I did. And I kind of like, at a startup, I could be scrappy and you can explore every little area. So for the longest time, we weren't really doing anything on our like digital shopper. If you guys use like Instacart or Uber Eats to order groceries, now it's very popular, but we weren't doing anything there. And like the last year, I was like, there's so much opportunity. There's so much money to be made on advertising these platforms. Now we have a full-scale consulting firm doing that work for us, and we've seen like 600% growth in that area of the business and that kind of like retail marketing, retail media, and network area. And no one was doing that, but no one told me, hey, Bree, we need you to go do this. They're not going to do that at a startup. They want you to bring a bunch of different ideas and just start executing. And that's like one of my strengths, was I can just execute. But it can also be dangerous. You have to be very careful of, stepping over people's toes, but it's how you communicate and collaborate with others is really important. Now our company has 40 people. So when I first started, I didn't have to tell everyone what I was doing, and a big learning curve is how do you communicate that to the team of, hey, we're doing this now. All these other areas the business need to know. How much do they need to know? High-level details, communicating that information effectively is really important too.
I think it's really inspiring that, even though Bright Bites didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out, that you were able to find a career path that worked for you and that you're successful in. So a little bit more is, what advice would you have for someone whose startup is facing challenges based on your experience with Bright Bites and how it ultimately led you to new opportunities?
I read these questions before, and still.
Do you want me to read it again?
No. I think it's really thinking about what you want to do. What is your ultimate goal? And you don't have to figure it out. No one knows. Especially now, you see people make these career pivots all the time. Focus on what you want, where you want to be, what really inspires you. And I just think I reached my capacity with Bright Bites. I was like, hey, there was a long jump, and I was reflecting back earlier today with some people. It was like, from where I was, we were successful in some things, but to be a Kind bar or to be a brand under Mondelez, there was a long way to go. There was not a clear, that was going to be a very long process. I didn't think that was the idea. But that didn't discourage me from, hey, joining another startup and living kind of that still entrepreneurship life with it.
Yeah. So kind of pivoting a little bit now, could you tell us a little bit more about Ritual Zero Proof? And you already talked about what led you there, but is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, well, what about Ritual? Well, so non-alcoholic spirits brand, we're made for cocktails. So if you think about a margarita, you can make a margarita with Ritual. Tequila, so it'd be like Ritual Tequila, just like you have regular tequila. We have 5 different SKUs, and what we focus on is that 1-to-1 replacement. So if you use 2 ounces of tequila, you use 2 ounces of Ritual. We're sold in over 3,000 stores. Some of the big ones, Walmart, Meijer, Total Wine, Publix, Bevmo. Huge portion of the business is also what we call on the on-prem. So bars and restaurants, when you go out to eat, you guys notice cocktail menus or drinks. What are their drink features where you can also be at some high-end bars? I think actually I looked Jolly Pumpkin or Hopcap. One of those, I can't remember which one, were on the menu there. I was looking earlier in East Lansing. So that business is what we call on-prem, but we're also in cruise lines, hotels, and then have presence online, Amazon and e-commerce. Last 2 weeks ago, we are actually acquired, so it's became a full circle moment for Ritual, and our main investor was always a company called Diageo. So they're the biggest spirits company in the world. They own some of the most iconic brands, Johnnie Walker, Crown Royal, Casamigos Tequila, Guinness. I'm sure you guys have all heard of some of those or have strong preferences on what you like in those. So we're joining the team at Diageo, and that's really exciting. That's always been the goal. When they started this company, they found the funding through Diageo's accelerator program and was always the end goal. But it's really the beginning of new opportunities for the business itself.
So kind of taking a different direction now. Looking back, what would you have done differently?
That is a really tough question. I was also thinking about because I didn't know any better. And I think that all the tough situations or things that happened teach you so much. The failures, those late nights, the really stressful, just like overwhelmness taught you something that, yes, I could have avoided it if I had maybe money or someone to tell me, don't do that, don't go to a manufacturer, your packaging's really loud, you should really fix that. But I didn't know any better. I was just trying to persevere through the whole thing and really just like keep pushing out and put that product to market. There was a lot of challenges along the way, but I think each one had its new opportunity and taught me something different about it. I think, thinking long-term, thinking where you want to be, thinking how to get there is all really important too, but you don't know what you don't know. So you kind of have to figure it out, and you still, looking back, it's like, well, you did this, but then, yeah, it messed up. But what it took me was actually a 10 times the better way. I actually, before it was named Bright Bites, it was a different company name. Well, looking back, I wouldn't have changed that, because when I changed the company name, that's when I went through and separated with my business partner and had this whole new spark of inspiration. So that was probably a huge pivotal point in the business. But if someone said, you're going to start a business, 3 months in, you're going to have to change the name, go through all these trademark issues, legal issues, I'd be like, no, don't sign me up for that. But you kind of figure out through it and really go back to like what you want to do.
Yeah, every moment's a learning opportunity.
Exactly.
I think that's really important. So what skills from entrepreneurship that you have had in the past have kind of helped you in your path, specifically when you're looking for a job?
I would say confidence and communication. If you can confidently communicate to others, you can engage with people, you know how to hold a conversation, that is going to put you so much further in your career. If you have a business, speak about that. Speak about those opportunities, whether it's something that just started, talk to that future employer, that recruiter about that opportunity. We were talking with about it a little bit earlier, and I said, it's so much more inspiring to hear someone say, I have a business and we are able to do X, Y, and Z and deliver boom, 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 than in my business class, I did this project once and yeah, it was kind of cool, but like, it was just a project. You're downplaying that. Even if all it is a business project, hype it up. Like, let's talk confident about it. Let's tell it. Let's deliver the story and make things personable. We were talking earlier too with the We group about how do you be memorable? How do you leave a mark? You're more than just the resume or the piece of paper. There's a lot of people, especially in some of these competitive jobs and internships, that are applying. So how do you stand out? Whether it's making a personal connection, remembering something, doing something different than your peers, and do your research too. I would say, obviously the skills you learn as an entrepreneur are gonna put you further, but it comes back to confidence, communication, and that mindset. So you start thinking broader. You're not pigeonholing yourself into one area. And that's fine. If you're a finance major, that's great. You're gonna be great, continue to pursue that finance area, but also think about what areas of the business can you affect. Well, that's huge for us, it was cost of goods. So start looking at how do you work with operations teams, or how can you get plugged in and ask those questions to other people too. If you join a company and you're on the finance team, that's great. How do you interact with the rest of the business? How do you work cross-functionally? And communicate that in your interviews, that you're thinking more broadly about the company and the goals versus the job that you were signed up for, because they want to see you do more and grow more than just like those 10 bullets, because a lot of times the job that they post on LinkedIn isn't actually what you're going to be doing. For me, it changed a lot.
Yeah, I think that's really, good information to know, especially to people who are entrepreneurs and like me, where I'm not an entrepreneur. But I think it's really good to know, kind of put yourself out there, be confident, and use what you've learned in your classes and the projects that you've done as a way to push you ahead and a way to, bring you more success.
Yeah, and with that, find out those things that are, really those impactful stories, but maybe apply to that company. We were talking about like fashion merchandising or a fashion company earlier. So if that company has D2C, we were talking about how can you show up and go above and beyond, whether you're just meeting with someone for the first time and someone's like, oh, I want to work for a startup. How do you look for, how do you deliver something to that company? So you're meeting with someone, kind of informal. Don't just go and ask them for advice. Go and deliver and be like, hey, by the way, I noticed you do X, Y, and Z. Here's a marketing plan because I noticed you guys aren't doing anything on digital ads. I put this together for you. They're going to be like, wait, I wasn't thinking about that, or you didn't have to do that. So whether that's not maybe a job interview, but you're starting to meet people and network, don't just like take. You have to give a little bit of your thought and time, and that's going to go a lot further in that conversation. And they're going to think of you as, oh, that was the person that put together that marketing deck that maybe it wasn't an idea, but it's the thought that counts, and it's another topic to say, hey, I know I signed up and my role was graphic design, but I noticed that you guys don't have any, new content on your website. So I shot some of these images for you. Here's what I'm going to show you.
So our last question, and then we'll get into Q&A. So you already touched on a little bit about Ritual Zero Proof being acquired by Diageo. Could you talk a little bit more about how that moment is kind of full circle and go a little bit deeper into that?
Yes, so it was only two weeks ago, I think, that we were acquired. So it's very fresh, new, exciting, and a whirlwind of opportunities. You always hear about startups. If you are familiar with the chip brand Siesta, I think that's how you say it, they got acquired recently last week from PepsiCo. And it started as like a small family brand, and now they sold to PepsiCo. And you hear these stories, you hear about RX Bar selling to Kellogg for millions of dollars, or all these big things. And when you start in entrepreneurship, I don't think people really, the goal for me wasn't, I'm going to start this business to sell it and live a luxurious life and that's it. The goal is really has to come first of like what you're passionate about, because there's a long way from like idea inception to a sale of a company. What's been really inspiring for me is Diageo is a publicly traded company. It's on the stock exchange. Like this is wow. Like I never thought 4 years ago that I would be, yes, it's a huge corporation. I'm now working at a corporate company. This is going to be very different than a startup, but I was employee 15 2.5 years ago, and we're at 40 now, and we're growing our team to 70 people in the next 6 months. This is a huge opportunity that I'll have with me through the rest of my career. I hope I find future jobs or start my own businesses that are this exciting, because I'm like, wow, this is really so fun. Every week is different. I would say that it's really to mark a moment. We didn't know, we knew the acquisition was kind of coming, the timing not specifically. So that Wednesday that we were acquired was like I still have that moment. It was only 2 weeks ago, and we found out. And people like went back to their computers after work, or like we found this announcement, PR goes out at 10 a.m. And I'm looking around our office and I'm like, guys, we need to celebrate. Like, you guys aren't actually working. Like, what? No one's actually, like, whatever you're doing right now is not that important on your computer at work. So I was like, okay. And they were like, we can't really drink right now. We should probably drink non-alc. So I was like, okay, let's make everyone drinks. Like, we work for a non-alc company. Why are we not celebrating? We don't have champagne, but we did have some non-alc champagne in the office. So we started popping bottles of non-alc champagne and making everyone cocktails, because I was like, you guys are crazy. Some of us, our co-founders, have worked here 5 years. Like, it's been our first office. We were reminiscing today, was like obviously really small, but it was kind of like an old house almost, and the garage went up. Like, I looked at a dumpster. Like, that was like, what it is. And now our company is sold to Diageo. And so was amazing to have that celebration and that full circle moment. And I kind of thought about it from my own shoes as like, I was an entrepreneur. I know what they feel like. This is what you do wonder. Is this going to happen? Is my company going to succeed? Is it going to get acquired? Can I move on? Or do I now have a network of new opportunities and resources? So it was really special to celebrate. And I would also say, like, celebrate the wins, no matter what, whether it's you get new packaging. I remember when our first pallet came in for Bright Bites. We had one pallet delivered, and I can't remember if this one was to a warehouse or my parents' garage. There was a couple pallets to my parents' garage, and I was like directing a semi through a neighborhood. But I was so happy, like, this is cool. But it's about celebrating those moments, and so it was full circle to say, hey, our company got acquired today. This is why I joined. Was Ritual a couple years ago, was we knew that there was a possibility for the company to be acquired from Diageo and have that support. Diageo, like I said, is the largest spirits brand in the world. They're based in the UK. They have brands everywhere globally, and now we're leading the new non-alcoholic division. So they actually had a company at Diageo. We're folding into that company and creating a whole new non-alc division at Diageo. This is something that they've really never done. Now we'll be the largest non-alcoholic brand there is. In terms of market share, we have 50% market share with the two brands combined, and in terms of manpower with our employees. And so, but 2.5 years ago, we were struggling to figure out, we had like one national chain. We had Kroger, that was it. And we were, struggling to find what selling opportunities we had. We had issues with manufacturing, and those issues don't go away. Things get resolved, and problems only get bigger. But we were able to find the right team, find the right resources, and having an entrepreneurship program, or we were through an accelerator with Diageo, but having that support was huge into the success of it getting sold.
Yeah, shifting from startup to corporate is a huge step for a company. And I think that that's such a great thing, not only for the company, but for you and, furthering your success in your career. So
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, it's, I was already thinking about there's certain things that we could just do. I could get these contracts signed and done and move forward in like a week. And someone was emailing me today, and they're like, hey, any chance we're going to get that contract back? And I was like, yeah. Nope, it's Diageo's legal team, so like give me a month, like everything is gonna take, like they say, companies, there's a lot more red tape. Things just take longer. In the startup world, you can really push things through, and we have talked about that so much in our early days of Ritual. Was like, it's an idea on a Monday morning, it's probably half executed by Tuesday, and it could be fully integrated by that Friday. Like, we move very quick. People are always shocked at how quickly we move at Ritual and get things back. And so I think it's going to be an adjustment for some of our working styles too, of like, hey, lot longer lead times on things, lot longer planning as well. So there's goods and bads, and we are talking, now being a part of a brand like Diageo, the resources that we have access to in terms of sales information, data, is endless. So much more opportunity. Knowing distribution is very different in the Bev Alc space too. So there's a ton of new opportunities for the brand and for myself that I'm really excited about exploring.
Awesome. Bree, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to open it up to Q&A now. Allison's going to come around with a microphone. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Does anybody have a question? Oh, no.
Hello. Do you anticipate starting another business in the future? Is that a plan that you currently have? Or, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but.
Yes, but I don't have anything right now.
Okay.
So maybe in the future, I always joke of like certain ideas, or I'll say like, oh, this could be fun, and then I get the million questions of like, what is this? And I was like, I don't know, it's just an idea. I hope one day, but nothing in the foreseeable future at all.
Okay, cool. I was just curious. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you able to adapt the mindset in your sophomore year of college to believe that you could actually follow through with a new company?
I think I really liked the idea of a problem, and especially with a consumer packaged goods, I wanted to see that product in the market. It's something you could touch. I've always been drawn to that consumer packaged good industry or physical products, food we all interact with, we all eat. And so I was really motivated by that idea, and my biggest push through in those first couple months was I wanted to deliver a product to the market. I was like, we just need to get this going. We need to get the packaging. It doesn't matter what it needs to look like at first, we just need to get it out and start selling, because then you start thinking about all those new opportunities or new obstacles that are kind of exciting as well, like what store is this gonna sell at? What are the SKUs? What are the flavors? And really start to think about how do you get out there and then get the feedback. And that was what my first goal was, just, and I think that's what I did really well, was quickness and speed to market. Get something out there. You could sit for a year and make sure you have the perfect product. And in some situations you do, whether it's tech or development. But a lot of CPG, people are making stuff in their apartments. They're making stuff in their dorms. You can turn out a product and get some packaging starting right away. And that kind of it got me hooked.
Did you always believe that you could succeed in it, or did someone kind of motivate you to believe that it could go somewhere? Did you always have the kind of entrepreneur mindset?
I think a bit of both. There's totally a ton of moments of self-doubt. And that's what we did talk about in We Too, is like those moments of self-doubt is great to have Burgess and great to have the resources at the Hatch and just other colleagues to understand and push you through. Like there are a ton of moments where you're like, I don't know. So surrounding yourself with those people that are in entrepreneurship or have done it, friends and family that can be supportive, and sometimes you just need that like quick pep talk of like, but it's okay, you're gonna have those moments too. Totally, self-doubt and comparison, but another thing I would say is just like, don't compare yourself to others. Like people you're gonna see businesses, like you're scrolling on LinkedIn, this business got acquired and this startup got acquired. Cool, but you don't know the full story. And a lot of people have been more honest about sharing entrepreneurship, but it's a true grind. And so you're really only gonna see the highlight reel. So focus on that, I would say.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, but how did you end up finding your position at your startup? Because I'm not sure if it's like posted on LinkedIn or Handshake or something like that. So how did you acquire that position?
Yeah, I actually found it through LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was looking for several different opportunities, and it kind of was very interesting. Through my deep stalking of LinkedIn, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar, like how did I even get to this person? Well, I had a pitch competition. A judge in my pitch competition was from Canada, connected to the CEO of the startup. And I was like, hey, I really like this judge at the pitch competition. And I had already applied for the job, already started talking to them a little bit. I said, hey, how do you know our CEO? And he was like, oh, I invested in his first company. I was like, oh, no way. Like that is, some people don't really know that person, maybe just heard of them, or he actually knew them. And they had mentioned it, but that's not the reason. I wasn't close enough to get the good word, but they had, crazy kind of how it worked out after. But it was exploring through LinkedIn that I found the company.
Do we have any other questions?
You just mentioned your pitch competitions, and I know you did a lot of them. Can you talk about how or if they benefited you?
Thanks, Mom. Yes, I had two very supportive parents and a very supportive boyfriend through the pitch competitions that still support me today. But pitch competitions were everything for my business. I pitched so many times, and I used all of those funds to propel the business forward. I had secured over $50,000 or $60,000 in startup capital, non-diluted funds through competitions. So those were ranging from $10,000 in a competition to $1,000, but I had an immediate need. I was like, okay, this $1,000 is going to new packaging. This $1,000, and the money was well used. And I think if you are doing a pitch competition, as a judge or someone that's handing out real money, it's very important that you say what you're going to do with it. So word of advice for anyone in the pitch competition, say what you're going to do with that funds. Make it specific. Don't say you're going to build a marketing plan. Like, get specific. If you need packaging, if you need a web developer, that's going to cost this, and you also need licensing is going to cost this. So get specific with those pitch competitions, and they can help you network. Like I said, this judge that I met probably years in advance was then connected to my current CEO in his past venture. So people know each other, even if you don't win anything at the pitch competition, follow up with those judges. You don't know what industries they're in and how they're going to be connected to startups a lot of times. They might be hiring you for your next job too.
Firstly, congrats on the acquisition. And
Thank you.
I kind of wanted to ask, looking back, are there any moments where you're like, or of failure where you're like, this was really important for my journey, or that really impacted you to make the decisions you made?
Yes, there was a lot of different failures. I think the one I talked about earlier with our manufacturing and just going there and being like, this product was not what we had wanted at all. It was, seeping oils and peanut butter and just totally terrible. Was a huge moment of self-doubt. There's also a ton of times where the packaging didn't come in time. I was like, I don't have enough packaging. We were going through iterations of our packaging, and I think we ultimately produced it in China one time, and it was getting shipped overseas like we did a couple years in advance to save on costs, but I was like running out of packaging and running out of product too. So I think those were huge navigations that I had to go throughout the business. In some situations where a complete panic. I think there was a few that were just like, they're absolute fires. You don't know. Monday, you're like, yeah, this week looks pretty good. By Friday, you're like, my world is upside down. I need to be here. We need this much product, and I don't know how I'm going to do it all.
Do we have any other questions? All right, if we don't have any other questions, I guess we'll wrap it up a little bit early. Please help yourself to pizza. There's pizza over there. I'm sure there's plenty left. And Bree, thank you so much for joining me and telling us all about your story.
Thank you for having me.